Hi everyone, this is Riya, and I'm very excited to have Mike Vaishnav join us on call today. Mike is a CFO consultant and strategic advisor to many privately held organizations. The topic of discussion for today is goods versus services and similarities and difference between them when it comes to purchases. So, to start off, Mike, could you share your thoughts on the key differences between purchasing goods and services in a typical organization?
Sure. Thanks, Riya. So let's focus on it again, this process depends on the size of the organization, big company versus a small company. But let me focus on the general process, how the goods and services differ. The goods would be more on the like tangible property, where you need to have a specific quantity, specific price, and specific quality of the product you require. It depends on whether you're buying the raw material or you're buying the machinery or equipment. It all depends on that. So it all very specific related with whether you're buying for what your own purpose for as a fixed asset or an inventory. What the services would be a different, like it's more on the intangible nature of the services, like what the consulting services, what you need it, what kind of like whether you have some temporary labors or contract labor or some of the high level consulting. It all depends on the like the how it will differ from the goods of the service. Goods is like nature of the services, what type of expertise do you need it, type of level of the people do you need it. So that's the kind of two different processes. The goods are more tangible, will be measurable, versus the services are more based on the milestone and delivery and the number of hours based on the, or maybe a retainership type of thing, depends on the agreement. So these are the main basic difference between the goods and services.
Got it. So, in terms of terms and conditions for procurement, how do they differ between goods and services?
So for the goods, you need to have, as I said, where you need some specific quantity or a quality or some specification. So when you purchase something, you need to make sure that we have specific quantity, specific specification. You have it. What type of quality of the product do you need it? That includes the delivery of the timing. If any maintenance required, or if you're buying the fixed asset, if any installation or implementation is required. So those kind of things more you require for the goods of services. Also, we need to focus on the after sale. You need any specific services from the vendor. That also needs to be considered for the good services, because there are multiple arrangement type of thing where you purchase one thing and vendor needs to follow certain services. So those are included in the good service. On the service side is more on the consulting side or more intangible type of thing, where we need to have what's the expertise required, what's the level of experience required, whether there's any confidentiality required. So those type of things required in agreement, versus the goods are pretty basic, like price, nature of the goods and quantity. Other thing you need required to services is what's the deliverables on the services, what's the milestone, what's the performance, how they are going to do it based on the certain time base or time and labor base, or how you're going to do that, or in a lump sum contract basis. So these are the basic differences you can see in the terms and conditions for the goods and services.
Got it. So, would you like to explain when it comes to pricing, how do the considerations differ between goods and services, especially when you're negotiating with a vendor?
So goods, I have like so many multiple dependency on that. It all depends on the market. First of all, how the market price, because the goods price is driven by the market. So the service is also, but mainly goods is driven by the market rates, what's the supplies and demand, what's the availability, what's the within specific critical items or non-critical items, economic environment. Those are the factors. Again, you are doing it whether you're doing the like piecemeal purchases or bulk purchases. When you do the bulk purchases, you can negotiate the discount. Or the other thing, you can do the pricing based on the vendor, what your payment term would be. If you're paying early, then sometimes vendor will give you some discount based on a certain price break. So those are the things would be impact on the goods pricing. Versus services, you need to depend on the labor cost. What's the labor cost available in the market? What's the expertise level do you require? What kind of services you are getting it? What level of the experience you are going to get from that? And based on that, you negotiate your hourly rate, or you can negotiate the lump sum based on the project basis. So these are the key differences between the pricing for the goods and services.
Could you elaborate on how the approval processes are different when purchasing goods versus services?
So one thing is very common between the goods and services, and the most of the is very cross-functional collaboration that you have to require for the anything what you purchase goods or services. They're more stringent on the goods side than service side. And I'll give you an example. Like if you're good, you're buying the raw material. So only one operations cannot order. Operation will give you the what they need to order. They need to work with the procurement. They need to work with the finance. They need to work with the legal if any contracts required. So those are the things cross-functional collaboration required. For services side, it all depends. There are quite a few cases individual department have a sufficient authority to order. They can order the services like legal services. You don't need to have like so many other cross collaboration required. Of course, there's always oversight required from the finance or executive team based on the threshold or you created or hierarchy you created on the approval limits. But generally, some of the services where there is a corporate function, that may require some of the cross-functional collaboration that who needs the services. There are some of the specific services where any specific department require if they have sufficient authority with their, and if they have a budget with best they are doing the ordering the service under their budget, then they do not have to go through more approval process or approval channels, and they can do it themselves. So these are the major key differences between the approval limit.
And how does the receiving process differs between goods and services, and what challenges does this present?
So receiving for the goods is like you have to, as soon as you receive the goods, you need to make sure what you have ordered is based on your quality, what's your specification that goods has been received. Now, in terms of when you receive the goods, based on the goods received note, you can match with the purchase order, and then later on you can match with the invoices once you receive the invoices. But the first thing you need to match with the purchase order and the goods received note, and making sure what you have ordered in terms of the quantity, quality, specification, pricing, everything needs to be matched when you receive the goods. Also, on the certain goods thing, you need to have like some of the testing required on certain things. So you have to make sure the testing has been done properly and making sure that goods are working it. There are some of the conditions based on the contract with the vendor. Some contracts require that you have to test certain goods as soon as you received it, or you have to verify in a working condition. Certain goods, when you receive the goods for let's say machinery and equipment, if there's an implementation clause and if there's a testing clause involved, then when the machinery is received, they're making sure that all machinery has been received properly. But then after the receiving, they need to make sure that whether it's what the installation required and how their vendor is going to perform based on the contractual agreement.
Thank you. So, Mike, would you like to explain how does purchase order play a role in both goods and service procurement, and how does that differ?
So the purchase order is very critical. You cannot, most of the company, for the control and compliance purpose, you cannot order any good without the purchase order. It's just more on the internal policy. So that the purchase order is considered as more the external document also, because once if the purchase order has been approved, you will send it to the vendor, and vendor will provide based on the detail and description of the purchase order. So that's one of the similarity whether you consider as the goods or services both. But for the specific for the goods purchase order, you need to make sure that you require some specific quantity, specific items, description of the items, like timing of the receipts. Those are the kind of things you require on the goods side. On the services side, you don't need those specific quantity or items, but you need to just more on the descriptive, what kind of services your consultant or your service provider is going to provide. And based on that, you create the purchase order. Quite a few times, the purchase order for the services could be a blanket PO where you can say, oh, I want to order the $50,000 worth of service or $100,000 worth of consulting services. And then whoever the respective department head will make sure that what level of the services. So the receipt for the services is very different. Only one thing I would say where you tangibly you can check it out when you hire the contractors and they have to submit their time card. So for the submission of time card, you always check whether what the hours they submitted and hours the vendor have the invoice. So this is another difference on the service side. For other side, both sides is the process is pretty much similar except what I mentioned about.
So would you like to explain how does invoice processing differ between goods and services, and what are the best practices in this area?
So the invoice processing for the goods is when you receive the invoices, there's always based on the three-way matching. So first of all, you match the goods receipt note with the PO. And then if there's matched, then you can use the goods receipt note, PO, and the invoices to making sure that what you have ordered is based on PO, what you have received it, and you make the process on that. So that's kind of thing for invoice processing. Now there are few things you can make the specific quantities on the goods. Like if you order the raw material with the specific units, you can do that. Sometimes you order the office supplies, you don't match 100% on matching on the everything is been received or not. But the overall high level, you can match the three-way matching. Versus on the services side, you will have two-way matching where you match because there is no goods receipt note. So always you purchase order with the invoices. Now another background check, a back-end check would be how you do that. There are two things on the service side. If there's a time card involved for the contractors, you can match your invoices with the time card and PO both, and making sure that what vendor is invoiced or service provider invoiced you is based on the number of hours submitted, number of hours approved by the company. On the other side, if there is no time card, then you need to have based on the milestone achieved, or you need to ask the respective department head and making sure that even if they have approved the PO, they need to approve the invoices and making sure that they have received the services, because sometimes PO they approved, but if the vendor or service provider over invoice, then they can make the appropriate adjustment. So these are the main changes, main difference between the approving the goods and services.
Got it. So, Mike, how does vendor onboarding differ for goods versus services, and what should organizations really focus on?
So vendor onboarding is depends on for the good. There are so many factors involved. First of all, like on a both goods and service side, you always look at the vendor's reputation. But for the good side, you need to have like if there's specific types of material you are ordering, whether you require specific certification like ISO certified or not. What's the vendor here? Like if vendor is relying on other people to get the product for you, you need to make sure that how the vendor's connection would be. And a vendor may not put you in the last minute trouble that, oh, I have not received certain goods or supplies. So vendor's credibility, vendor's connection, and making sure the logistics capabilities what they have it, because those are the key things that we need to focus on. Because if you have like supply chain with the vendor, that supply chain reliability is very important for that. Other thing need to be considered for the vendor, that how vendor can capture the goods from the market as a new supplier, or for the raw material, then how they have the like raw material availability, their production capacity. That's one of the things you need to focus, because if they are producing the goods for you, if they do not have sufficient production capacity and it's going to impact you for the raw material, that's a critical for the company. So that's another thing you need to look at it. While service is considered, you need to look for their reputation, their expertise, their knowledge level, their pool of their consultants or employee, their reputation in the market. Those are the things you need to focus in making sure that they are suitable towards your need and what you're looking for the services.
Thank you, Mike. So that brings us to the last segment of the interview. What role do you see AI playing in the streamlining of procurement for both goods and services?
AI it would be like a pretty significant role, and it's a kind of game changing type of. Now, I'm not saying that AI can fix the issues, because there are quite a few companies will have a sophisticated ERP system, so they can do the same thing like matching the PO, matching the invoices, goods receipt note. All those things can be done. AI can come into play when there is no such, they have like fragmented system. Some of the system for a small company, they may not have online PO system or online goods receipt system in or online receiving from the invoices from the vendor. So those are the things good AI can help. So how AI can help? So first of all, if there is no automated workflow, AI can make the automation of the workflow. It will simplify the process. It will get less human intervention and like make the invoices, everything online. And then it would be like more accuracy and more detail you can get it. The other thing would be it will help you for the compliance on some of the regulatory requirement, make sure that suppliers even complying with all those regulations in labor laws or other ethical standards. Those are the other things you can look at it. Also, AI can help you with the predictive analysis and making sure what's your demand would be, how much do you need it, when you need the certain goods based or certain raw material based on the certain analysis. Or at the same time, AI can provide you the market data, that what is the market trend going on, what's the scarcity, how the market would impact your procurement. Also, the other thing you need to focus is like the real-time data sharing with the vendor. So you can share the data with the vendor about the goods receipt or a PO or invoices, or you can create the dashboard or KPI for the vendor where you can keep track of the vendor performance. And then last but not least, with the dashboard of the AI, of course, there are quite a few ERP systems can provide that, but AI can provide customized dashboard based on the different level. And you can keep track of your purchases. You can keep track of your open purchase order. You can keep track of like where the goods, what the status of the goods. You can keep track of the what's the accrual would be. AI can help you for the closing the books and accruals. So all those things with AI, you can achieve a lot more operational efficiencies.
Thank you so much, Mike. It is always great to have you here. And thank you for sharing your insights and taking your time out. I'm sure the viewers agree.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
Thank you.